Hello and welcome to the Fluent Journey, your go-to podcast for learning English in a simple, fun and effective way. I'm Jasmine, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to say something in English but stopped yourself because you were afraid of making a mistake? Or maybe you felt nervous speaking in front of others because you weren't sure if your words were correct. If that sounds familiar, don't worry. You're not alone. Many English learners struggle with hesitation when speaking, but here's the good news. You can overcome that hesitation. In today's episode, I'm going to share some simple and powerful techniques to help you speak English more confidently. By the end of this episode, you'll have practical steps you can start using right away to improve your fluency and confidence. And here's something exciting. At the end of this episode, I'll share a special practice tip that will help you speak without hesitation. So stay with me until the end. Now, before we talk about how to speak English confidently, let's first understand why we hesitate in the first place. If you've ever found yourself struggling to speak, stopping mid-sentence, or feeling nervous when talking in English, you're not alone. This is something almost every English learner experiences. But why does this happen? There are a few common reasons, and I want you to think about which ones apply to you. First, fear of making mistakes. This is one of the biggest reasons people hesitate when speaking English. Maybe you're afraid of saying the wrong word, using incorrect grammar, or pronouncing something incorrectly. You might worry that people will laugh at you or judge you, but let me tell you something important. Making mistakes is a natural part of learning. Think about babies when they learn to speak. Do they say everything perfectly? No. They make mistakes all the time, but they keep trying, and eventually, they get better. The same is true for learning English. Every mistake you make helps you improve. So instead of being afraid, embrace mistakes as part of your learning journey. Second, lack of vocabulary. Another common reason for hesitation is not knowing enough words. Have you ever been in a conversation where you wanted to say something but couldn't find the right words? It's frustrating, right? When this happens, many learners stop talking completely or switch to their native language. The good news is that you don't need a huge vocabulary to speak confidently. Native speakers also don't use difficult words in everyday conversation. Instead of trying to memorize long lists of words, focus on learning useful phrases and expressions that you can use in different situations. For example, instead of memorizing the word delicious, you can learn a full phrase like, "This food tastes amazing." That way, you'll always have something to say. Third, overthinking grammar. Now let's talk about grammar. Many learners hesitate because they are constantly thinking, is my grammar correct? Should I use past tense or present tense? What if I make a grammar mistake? Let me share a secret with you. When native speakers talk, they don't think about grammar rules. They just speak naturally. Of course, grammar is important, but if you focus too much on it while speaking, it will slow you down. Instead, try to speak naturally and focus on communication, not perfection. Think of it like riding a bicycle. When you first learn to ride, you don't worry about every little movement of your hands and feet. You just ride. And with practice, it becomes natural. Speaking English works the same way. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. Fourth, lack of practice and confidence. Finally, one of the biggest reasons people hesitate is simply not practicing enough. If you don't use English regularly, it's normal to feel nervous when speaking. Confidence comes from doing something again and again. Imagine you're learning how to swim. At first, you feel scared. The water feels deep, and you don't know if you can stay afloat. But the more you practice, the more confident you become. Eventually, swimming feels natural. Speaking English is just like that. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you will feel. Now, I want to reassure you, it's completely normal to feel hesitant when speaking English. Every learner goes through this stage, but the important thing is that you don't let hesitation stop you. You can become a confident speaker, and I'm here to help you with that. In the next section, I'll share some powerful strategies to help you speak English confidently. So stay with me, and let's move on to the next step of your fluent journey. Imagine this. You're in a cafe, and a tourist asks you for directions in English. You know the answer, but suddenly you feel nervous. Your mind goes blank. You try to find the right words, but they don't come out. In the end, you just point in the direction and say nothing. Has this ever happened to you? If so, don't worry. You're not alone. Many English learners feel the same way. But today, I'll share some simple ways to speak English confidently without hesitation. Let's start with a common problem: thinking in your native language and translating into English. Imagine you're at a restaurant and you want to order food. You think of the sentence in your native language first, then try to translate it into English. But while you're doing that, the waiter is waiting, and you feel more nervous. This is why thinking in English is so important. Instead of translating, try to form your thoughts directly in English. It may feel difficult at first, but with time, it will become easier. Imagine a child learning to walk. At first, they fall many times, but they don't stop. They keep trying, and one day, they walk without thinking. Speaking English is the same. If you don't practice, you'll always feel nervous. But if you speak a little every day, your confidence will grow. You don't need a classroom or a teacher. Just try speaking in small ways. Say what you see around you, describe what you're doing, or even talk to yourself in English. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel. Imagine you're in a shop and you need help finding something. You know the word help, but you don't know how to ask politely. You hesitate, and in the end, you say nothing. This is why learning phrases is better than just learning words. Instead of memorizing one word at a time, learn full sentences like, "Excuse me, can you help me find this?" This way, you'll always know what to say in real situations. Have you ever watched a baby learning to speak? They make mistakes all the time, but no one laughs at them. Instead, people encourage them. But when adults learn English, they often feel embarrassed about mistakes. Here's the truth. Mistakes don't matter. What matters is communication. If you say something wrong, most people will still understand you. And the more you speak, the fewer mistakes you'll make. So don't be afraid, just keep speaking. Some people think that speaking fast makes them sound fluent. But actually, speaking too fast can make it harder to understand. Imagine you're listening to someone talk very quickly in a new language. It's confusing, right? The key is not speed, but clarity. Speak slowly, pronounce your words clearly, and don't rush. It's better to speak slowly and be understood than to speak fast and feel nervous. Think about how children learn to talk. Before they speak, they listen. They hear their parents, they hear people around them, and over time, they start to speak. Listening helps you learn how English sounds. If you listen to English every day, through songs, podcasts, or conversations, you'll start to feel more comfortable with it. And when you feel comfortable, speaking will become easier. Speaking English confidently is not about being perfect. It's about trying, making mistakes, and improving little by little. Remember, every great English speaker started as a beginner. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Start speaking today. Speaking English confidently doesn't happen overnight, but small daily actions can make a big difference. One of the best ways to improve is by practicing simple phrases and sentences out loud. Think about how children learn to speak. They hear words, repeat them many times, and slowly start forming sentences. This natural process helps build fluency without stress. A great way to build confidence is to focus on one phrase at a time. When you hear a useful phrase, try to remember it and think of a simple sentence using it. Over time, these small efforts will help you speak naturally without hesitation. Another important step is speaking out loud. When you say words clearly and with confidence, your brain gets used to forming sentences faster. Even if you're alone, Simply saying a sentence out loud can make a big difference. Confidence grows with practice, and the more you speak, the more natural it will feel. So don't be afraid to try. Speaking English is a journey, and every small step brings you closer to fluency. Speaking English confidently doesn't happen overnight, but small daily actions can make a big difference. One of the best ways to improve is by practicing simple phrases and sentences out loud. Think about how children learn to speak. They hear words, repeat them many times, and slowly start forming sentences. This natural process helps build fluency without stress. A great way to build confidence is to focus on one phrase at a time. When you hear a useful phrase, try to remember it and think of a simple sentence using it. Over time, these small efforts will help you speak naturally without hesitation. Another important step is speaking out loud. When you say words clearly and with confidence, your brain gets used to forming sentences faster. Even if you're alone, simply saying a sentence out loud can make a big difference. Confidence grows with practice, and the more you speak, the more natural it will feel. So don't be afraid to try. Speaking English is a journey, and every small step brings you closer to fluency. Nervousness is something that many English learners face when it's time to speak. If you've ever felt your heart race or your mind go blank when you try to speak, you are not alone. The good news is that nervousness can be overcome, and with time you'll feel more comfortable speaking in English. So why do we feel nervous when speaking English? There are a few common reasons. First, many people are afraid of making mistakes. We all want to speak perfectly, but the truth is, making mistakes is completely normal. Everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. The more you speak, the more you will improve, and mistakes are just part of that journey. Another reason for nervousness is the fear of not having the right words. When you're trying to say something and can't find the right vocabulary, it can be frustrating. But you don't need to know every word in the language to communicate. The goal is to get your message across, not to use every word perfectly. Sometimes we also get nervous because we overthink grammar. We worry about using the right tense or sentence structure. While grammar is important, it's more important to communicate. Focus on what you want to say, not on being perfect. Lastly, some learners are nervous because they fear being judged by others. It's easy to think that others will laugh at you or think your English is not good enough. But remember, most people are supportive when you're learning a new language. They will appreciate your effort even if you make mistakes. Overcoming nervousness is about shifting your mindset. It's about realizing that speaking English is a skill that gets better with practice. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep trying. The more you speak, the more natural it will become. You've got this and you'll get better every time you speak. So don't worry. Just keep practicing and focus on the progress you're making. We've talked about some really important things today. Why we hesitate when speaking English, how to overcome that hesitation, and simple ways to build confidence. Now let's quickly recap what we learned. First, we discussed the reasons we hesitate. Fear of making mistakes, lack of vocabulary, overthinking grammar, and not having enough practice. These are normal struggles, but they can be overcome with the right approach. Then, we talked about powerful strategies to speak with confidence. Thinking in English helps you speak faster without translating. Speaking daily, even if it's just a few words, helps you become more comfortable. Learning phrases instead of just words makes conversations easier. Not worrying about mistakes allows you to speak freely. Speaking slowly and clearly improves your communication. And finally, listening more helps you understand and speak better. The most important thing to remember is this: confidence comes with practice. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to know every word in English. The key is to start speaking today. Even small steps will help you improve. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, make sure to follow this podcast for more tips and lessons on how to improve your English. Every episode will bring you closer to fluency, one step at a time. Thank you for listening, And remember, you can do this. Keep learning, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Fluent Journey.